Oh, it's. I've just hit go
Mhm.
live and it's
Okay.
it's circling.
Yes.
What?
Oh, the coffee's a little bit weak.
You're a little bit weak. Oh, well. Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday to you. I'm back. 30-day challenge. I'm getting the thumbs up from the husband that we are live. So that is good. So let's chat. So I wanted to start by actually giving I guess it's a post frame from yesterday. Yesterday I talked about being stuck in the same day over and over again. And some of you might have seen that and wondered, what does that have to do with transformation? So also, you might have wondered, what is she talking about? Is she stuck in the same day today, or what's happening? So just a little context for yesterday. That day that I described, that felt like every single day on repeat, was actually when I was still teaching high school. And you might be noticing a theme. Sarah, all your biggest struggles seem to be around the time that you were teaching high school. That's true. A lot of my stories are going to revolve around that. But don't be fooled. This is not a talk about how teaching high school can be stressful, although it can. What I really want to underscore from yesterday, and this is now turning into the pre-frame for today, is that problems often stem from other problems. So I like to think of this as, have you ever seen, they're called nesting dolls. Those dolls, they're usually wooden dolls, and you open up the big doll, and then there's another doll underneath it, or within it rather. And then you open up that doll, and there's another smaller doll within it, and you just keep on opening until you finally get to this itty bitty doll that's like the size of a bean or something. And then you've got all these dolls, and so problems, I find, you might have several problems in your life, but there's usually one large underlying problem underneath them all. And so that's what I want you to listen for today as I describe today's my obstacle from today. The underlying principle here is that problems often nest on themselves. So let's get into that. Today, the initial problem I want to tell you about, again, the context is when I was teaching high school, is I was at a point where I was settling for a life that I didn't want. I was basically living somebody else's life. So, confession, I've never really been that person that has known what they wanted to do for their whole life. I have known people like that. I've gone to college with people like that, that from like the age of 12, they had their mission, they had their calling, and they were going after it with their whole being. They had a lot of what we like to call inner alignment, which is a very powerful thing. I never had that. So when I went to college because I was told if I went to college, that would ensure that I wouldn't go hungry later on in life. I chose my major because I was naturally inclined towards it. So I enjoyed it, which was a good thing, but I never once took thought for what that would show up, how that would show up as a career afterwards. I just chose my majors, went through the process of going to college, doing the majors, and then sure enough, I got done with my college career and I chose teaching. I chose teaching because when I looked at my resume, everything I had done up to that point just kind of pointed towards teaching. So I had coached volleyball over the summers. I played lots of sports. I'd been a youth group leader or an assistant to a leader, so I'd worked with children. So it was just kind of a foregone conclusion. I guess I should be a teacher now. It wasn't the glamorous choice by any stretch. It was just the choice that made sense. And so as a result of that, I wanted coherence in my life more than anything. I didn't want to be someone who was clearly doing a job she didn't want to do, so I threw myself into it with all of my heart. I took it on as an identity, fully and completely. And then after that, I chose, especially my last teaching job, I chose to become a tennis coach because I coached before. I'd never played tennis, so I was an assistant tennis coach, mind you. Thank the Lord. I would not have taken that on as a head coaching job, but I was an assistant tennis coach, and I took that on because I had experience with coaching, and I also wanted to be a team player and help the school out. And as I talked about in the previous days, that became a long line of saying yes to things that didn't actually excite me. So I kept saying yes to these responsibilities at work to prove my worth ultimately. So that's the first thing, to prove my worth. And then secondly, because I was searching for that one thing that Marie Kondo might say would spark joy in my life. As you can imagine, this turned into being overworked, underpaid, exhausted, and just generally ill at ease with myself. I was living a life that I didn't want to live. And so coming back to that principle of nesting problems, when I look back at this, and of course hindsight is always 2020, when I look back at this, teaching high school was not the problem. Lots of people have that job, they love that job, they do well at that job, and they enjoy it. Lots of people, that's their calling. That was not my calling. That was something I'd taken on for myself. And when you peel back the layer, what it really represented was I didn't believe that I deserved to be happy. So the root of all of this ultimately was a self-esteem issue. It was a lack of self-worth. And I know that might seem really like, wow, Sarah, take it easy on yourself. But this is not me being hypercritical. This is me being very real. The extra weight that I carried around was really the problem that it was the underlying problem made visible. So every single time I looked in the mirror and saw this person that didn't have the body that she wanted to live in, that couldn't achieve the body that she wanted to live in. And keep in mind, this was a story I had been dealing with every single day. When was my first diet? Oh yeah, 10 years old. So all through college, this was the story every time I looked in the mirror. And ultimately, if every time you look in the mirror and all you see is inaction, inefficacy, the lack of an ability to do something that you know you should be able to do, that turns into this. If I don't get to be in the body that I want, what would make me think that I could live the life I want? And so that alarm would go off at 5 a.m. every morning. I would wake up and just put my hands out and say, yes, please, may I have another? This is all I get. And so as a result, I had gone numb to my own desires. And I mean numb. I mean, I had difficulty making decisions for what I should eat at a restaurant, kind of numb. And so it turned into me counting the days until the weekend, counting the months until vacation, and ultimately counting the years until retirement. Now, for someone who has not hit middle age quite yet, you don't want to be counting down the days till retirement. So what was possible for me is really what I needed to have access to. I needed to know what was possible for me. I know what I wanted, because I would think about it on the way to work every day, depressed. I wanted that magical thing called flow. You've probably heard of it, but that state where you are so engaged in what you're doing that you lose track of time, that you just lose yourself in whatever it is. I wanted rest. And I don't just mean a full night's sleep, although that would be sweet for sure. I mean, I wanted to be engaged in an activity that was self-regenerating. So I don't know if you've had the experience of doing some kind of job that even though you're expelling energy, you get done and you're more energized when you began. That's what I wanted in my life. And most of all, I wanted to feel purpose. I was spinning my wheels, trying to help my students in my class, trying to do the best I could. But purpose is what I wanted. that thing that drives you every day, being able to help people is something I'm passionate about, but help people that appreciate the work I'm doing and that are also meeting me halfway. I wanted to live my life on purpose, is the bottom line. Whew, that's a lot. That's a wide chasm, right, between where I was and where I wanted to be. So how do you bridge that gap? I find, and in my experience, what helped me was, first and foremost, I needed to find out what I enjoyed. And that was linked, I found, to what I was curious about. So a lot of times you hear things about like, oh, find your passion. I'm just going to say, I didn't have a passion necessarily when I was 12 years old. So that's a hard one to follow. But finding what you enjoy, that will lead you back to your deepest desires. Find what makes you feel good. Again, this might be feeling, I know you're probably thinking, Sarah, that's a bit nebulous. Like, I don't know what makes me feel good. For me, the very concrete things that I did to find what to start to realize, oh, this makes me feel good. Having some kind of a bodywork practice. So in my life, yoga has been that. Kickboxing, martial arts, those are huge in my life, and I love those. And I do those things for mental health. For me personally, I needed something that slowed me down. And so yoga has given me the ability to slow down and connect to my body. So, you're moving from pose to pose and you're breathing, and it's this complete internal experience. And so it makes me have to connect to what's going on. For some people, doing a faster practice, doing martial arts is a great thing for some people. They need that speed to keep them engaged. But yoga was a pathway for me to bring that kind of energy to every other thing that I did. The other way that I was able to connect what made me feel good, oddly, this is going to sound counterintuitive, when I found out that I had a gluten sensitivity, honestly. I didn't know. This is another example of being numb. Forrest, my wonderful husband, was actually the one that pointed out, Sarah, you might have some kind of allergic reaction going on. And so I had to take 2 weeks. I know this has been another suggestion I've given you guys. Take 2 weeks and track what you eat. And I eliminated wheat from my diet. And that, after 3 days, I found out, like, oh, that's the thing that's causing me issues. So as a result of discovering that I couldn't eat wheat anymore, it seemed like a bad thing, but I had to become acutely aware of, one, what worked in my body, and two, I had to be willing to tell people, I'm sorry, I can't eat that. I had to tell people no, which, as I've revealed in the last few days, was very difficult for me. So having to deal with a gluten allergy, having to take care of my body, and then also tracking my food, as I've said, those two things went hand in hand. That allowed me to begin to prune what I ate, first of all, and then that bled into other areas of my life. I began to prune those things that I discovered sapped my energy rather than restored it. And then ultimately it helped me realize that being in a job I hate, living a life I don't want, that I didn't choose for myself, is really just a big signpost telling me, hey, you got to find the root of your problem. So there is a way out. You gotta search for it, friends. This is what life is about, finding those answers for us. So let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, I'm here for you if you need help with this. I definitely get excited about helping people with this kind of thing. So, and then don't forget, if you want to hear more about the specific steps that I took, I will be leading a webinar on Saturday, July 4th. We'll be sending out more information. We might have already sent out more information. I don't know, but we'll send out more information as that gets closer. I hope you guys have a wonderful Friday. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I know there's not a ton we can do right now, but this is where our curiosity and our invention can come in, and we can make our way in the world. So, love you guys. Comment below with anything you want to share, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.